Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Cobweb. Thank you, Paul, for the welcome. My name's Epton. So I really wanted to talk about the fact that technology is evolving, and we've heard from a lot of the speakers today about technology liberating. But when technology goes wrong, it's debilitating. So I want to talk a little bit about the evolving technology, but also the evolving threat landscape that we're seeing. So if we look at the way that business has happened over the last sort of 10, 20 years, I think that sort of 10 years ago, I can remember joining the IT industry. In my first interview, somebody asked me, what is the internet? I didn't know. I didn't know what the internet was. So that shows you how far we've come, that, you know, even my little boy who's 4 or 5, well, he's 5, knows how old he is and knows what the internet is. But if you look at it, if you look at businesses, 10 years ago, we had, phones. I can remember standing by the fax machine every time it did that little whistle, little noise that said there was an order coming in. We'd stand there rubbing our hands, another commission check coming in, that kind of thing. Also, payment systems with the little roller thing, with the credit cards. Then we look at where we are today. So we're all using mobile devices. Claire talked about that earlier. We're all using technology, cloud technologies, and those kind of things. And I think what's interesting is it is fantastic when it works. It's absolutely fantastic when it works. And I think the future is that actually we will start to see our consumer behavior driving our business behavior. And I think that I heard somebody talk earlier, maybe it was Claire again, talking about the fact that there was somebody that had left their company, a graduate was leaving a company because of the technology they were using. So that's a great example of where actually technology is not just being used to enable the business, but it's enabling businesses to get the right people with the right attributes and the right attitudes and those kind of things. When I joined Symantec 12 years ago, I joined a company that was relatively small by comparison to where it is today. I also joined a company where we were protecting really businesses around just email. And so, for example, a lot of the threats that were created by 16-year-olds in their bedrooms, creating threats to knock over servers. That's all they wanted to do. They wanted to do it for notoriety. So the only thing they were scared of was their mum. That's the only thing they were scared of. And ironically, if they were to create those threats today, they would be in prison with somebody that wanted to be their mum. So it's not a good place to be, but this is how seriously we're taking it, okay? This is how seriously we're taking it. And if you think about it, there are people out there, and I was asked to make it very positive today. I don't want to, say we shouldn't do technology, there's too many threats. I just want to say, look, we just need to think about it and protect ourselves. So if we think about yesterday's threats, there used to be people that used to knock on old people's doors, persuade somebody that they were a gas man, and then they would take their purse. That was a threat. That was the way that people took money. We've also here, we all know somebody that's had the email, said, hey, my ancestor or my brother has died, he's got a load of money, can you put it in your bank account, can you give me some money? And so those kind of threats are there still today. Evolving even further is that I was reading an article the other day that said online dating could be a threat. And there are people out there that have been duped into giving people £10,000 or £15,000. If you could lend me £10,000, I may have a date with you. I didn't meet her, but it doesn't matter. It's not the point. But the point is that people will go out and dupe people for information. So if technology is a liberator, technology is also a form of attack and defense. So if you think about it, we saw a release of a film recently with Sony Pictures, and Korea, I think, launched an attack on Sony. And then we actually saw, was it North Korea? I think their network or their internet usage went down. And so basically what I'm saying is that when you look at some of the threats that are out there, so Dragonfly, Stuxnet is probably the one that a lot of people at Symantec will remember, because that was something that was created specifically to target Iranian nuclear facilities. So that was a specific attack. And I think it's quite scary when you think about the 16-year-old that was creating the threat for notoriety, and all of a sudden we've got governments investing masses of money into teams of people. And Stuxnet was something that took nearly 1 or 2 years to create. It took 5, 10, 20 people to create. So it's a very, very complex threat. I find it quite weird that just like we all run our own businesses and, we all have a responsibility for profitability, for targets, for revenues, whatever it may be, I find it quite weird that people that create threats sit there and they go, well, they might be sat there in a sort of virtual boardroom going, right, John, I'm sorry, but you've only managed to extort £15 million this year. I want 30 million. Where are you going to get it? Where are you going to get it? And literally, he's got to think of where the new market is. Where's the new opportunity for him to get more money? And, of course, we follow, or threats will follow, where the users are. And so I can remember there was a time where people said, I don't have viruses because I use an Apple Mac. And that was because nobody really used Apple Macs. So nobody created the threats for Apple Macs. Now we're all walking around with Apple Macs. I won't be on Monday, by the way. We're all walking around with Apple Macs. I may not have a job on Monday at this rate. But yeah, so we see people, assuming because they use something like an Apple Mac, they wouldn't be at risk. But the reality is the threats will follow the consumer, or will follow the people. And so mobile threats, you can see, are basically targeting mainly Android devices. And a lot of us would say, well, wait there, a lot of people are using iOS or using Windows. But the reality is that Android, as a technology platform, is more open. Android Marketplace, it's very easy to put an application on there. So there are examples where we've seen Angry Birds on the Android Marketplace free of charge. And so most of us, I'm a northerner, so I'm really guilty of this, love something that's for free. I don't need to pay for it. But the reality is that there's a load of threats probably embedded within that, and that will take information from you. So when we look at mobile devices, I think that a lot of the threats that we saw were probably just targeting mainly banking information, but we're now seeing that sort of go a step further. And Symantec actually did a little experiment, if you will, where they planted about 10 mobile phones around a number of US cities. And there were a variety of mobile phones. And the first application that was opened was the banking application. Now, you could say, well, was that people with, looking for money necessarily? But I think it's a bit like, who's ever found a wallet and had a look inside? And that's the example that we saw, is that basically people are interested in your information for financial gain. And that's something that you need to protect and make sure that you cover yourself with. And so interestingly, when you look at us as mobile users, now I've seen people go, anybody know my company or who's using X, Y, or Z? So I want to see a show of hands. Who has backed up their mobile device or their laptop within the last 7 days? I think you're liars. No, I'm not. No, I don't. So that really wasn't the whole room. And so the reality is that we need to make sure that we back up our information. So it's not necessarily that you can protect yourself from everything, because I don't think it's possible, because human error is something you can't protect from. So, for example, I was in the shower. My little boy thought it would be great to put my passcode in 10 times. I thought, click OK, that'll be fine. It died. I had a presentation that morning. I didn't know where I was going. I thought, I can't listen to music. I wanted to strangle him. I did. But the reality is when we lose that technology, it's so debilitating, it's so frustrating. So when we look at it, I didn't, if I'm honest, I worked for Symantec, or did work for Symantec, I didn't back up my device. And so the reality was I could not do my job properly. I could not access the information I needed. I could not get the Bing map to find where I'm going. And so the reality is that that's the challenge that we face. So thinking about the Internet of Things, we're evolving and we're seeing a lot of things change. So we're seeing technology come into our lives with TVs and motion detectors, but we're seeing a lot of new forms of attack being created as well. So when we look at CCTV, it's being hacked. There was a big case around baby monitors where they were being hacked, and that's quite scary. I think, well, what kind of person wants to do that? But the reality is it happens. The other area is that we're seeing cars, vehicles and those kind of things all being hacked. And it's demonstrated. So there is no financial gain. I don't believe that we're going to see a massive a space for it. But there's a probability that just like we used to see people going around and stealing cars with tennis balls and those kind of things, we'll now see that maybe with the use of technology. I want to dispel a myth. Refrigerators do not send spam. Okay, but the reality is that there is technology being created, and so people are now creating the kind of threats that are not just coming from one PC to another PC, but they're also creating what we call botnets, which is basically where they're able to create a threat, place it on somebody else's network, on somebody else's infrastructure, and still deliver the kind of devastation that they're looking to do, or the financial gain that they're looking to get. And at the moment, there is no reason to believe that your refrigerator is going to perish in that sense. So when we look at information, I I think, that information is powerful to somebody. And so we heard earlier talking about, prescribed advertising and those kind of things. But also just looking at the kind of information that our technology gives us. So wearable devices, that will start to give information like, your body fat index, how much you've eaten, what calories you consumed, how many steps you've taken, whatever it may be. I think it's safe to say that's probably not going to be a threat. But the reality is that you just don't know where this information could be of use. And so it is essential that when you're looking at liberating your technology, but you also consider the risks of if you lose that technology and having that ability to recover. So if you think your information is worth nothing, your information is worth something or worth something to somebody. Admitted, most of the financial information is probably what they're looking for, but there are still situations where people will still be interested in your information. I think also, if I think about when my son, entered the passcode too many times and how I was debilitated for at least a morning, then think about if you're running a business and think about the security threat to your business, because the technology will liberate you, but as I said at the start, it will also debilitate you as well. So it's essential that not only you have the security in place to try and prevent the kind of threats that are out there, but also having that ability to recover very, very quickly. Obviously, working for Symantec, we would recommend security and backup, because security is only part of the puzzle and backup is only part of the puzzle. And so as an organisation, that's something that we really encourage. But also, if you don't have the IT resources, I think it's amazing how many people out there think they know technology. And there was certainly an assumption, certainly 5, 6, 7 years ago, where people would say, well, I haven't got a virus because my machine hasn't died. Whereas now, if you actually find out that you've got a threat on your machine, then that person that created that threat has probably failed in what they were trying to achieve. So just think about the worth of your information, think about how you have the ability to recover that situation, but also thinking about, do you have that true security and backup capability within your business? And if you don't, then either employ the resource or employ a partner, like Cobweb, who can help you deliver that. Thank you very much.